Welcome to episode 39, Construction Nation. This is Sue Dyer, your host of Construction Dream Team, where I interview industry leaders and experts so you can learn how to run a better project with the people that you already have, and perhaps find some great people that want to join your team. And we do this by learning from others' experiences. I call these OPE. So why not learn from other people so that you don't have to suffer through the same kind of challenges maybe they had to, and they learned on the other side. So that's what we're going to do today. And we have a great guest today. Really, really excited to have Rob Smedley with us today. He is the design build manager for the building side for RS&H design firm. And just a little bit about Rob. He is an AIA, he's DBIA, and he has more than 30 years of experience working on a lot of different types of projects, both public and private. And now, as a design build manager for RS&H, he's responsible for working with project delivery teams, so all of them across his company, to implement design build via the Design Build Institute of America's best practices and techniques. And so I think he has a tremendous amount to share with us, because as we're looking at projects are moving more towards design build, or that kind of concepts where we can work together, maybe even in the planning stage, but certainly in the design phase, and work together all the way through activation and opening, or the selling of the project to the owner, and ultimately the use by whoever the end users are. We need to do this because we can affect change more in design than we can in construction. And so there's more and more of this moving, and that is Rob's expertise and also his passion, I believe, too. So yes. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sue. And I have to say, I'm really honored to be a part of your podcast. It's clearly one of the best in the industry. So thank you for inviting me.
I'm so excited you're here. I know we've talked a lot about what's going on in the industry, but tell everyone a little bit about your journey to kind of coming to being in a design firm, the head of design build, and using DBIA's approach.
Absolutely. So my story, I kind of think of it as T square to BIM to design build. I'm kind of the end of the generation of people who went to school and started with a T square. So I've seen a lot in the last 30 years. And I was really blessed to work for a number of terrific firms, primarily in the DC metro area, which has just got so many terrific opportunities for young architects. And so my experience literally includes starting with a firm in the basement of the owner and building it up to high-profile regional firms and even national firms. So I've really had this distinct honor of working with some great people, some great companies. I've seen basically about every type of architectural engineering firm there is out there. And my path was pretty typical in terms of coming out of school, working as an intern, then focusing on as a designer, and then moving into project architect, project manager, and ultimately a principal. So from that perspective, it was pretty much on track. But then I had something happen, and the great firm I was with was acquired by an AE firm. And I had never really had any desire to go that direction. So it was something that was unplanned. I tried to keep an open mind to it. I'm glad I did, because they really did show me that even in an AE firm, there's great opportunities for design. And more importantly, they taught me the business side and introduced me to something called Excel. This is going back a long time ago. And so that was my first tool of technology, was Excel. And where that story folds in later is, in Excel, you've got these parametric formulas that you can use. So, you change something once, and then it'll, if your formulas are right, it'll take care of the rest of the documents for you, which I thought was fantastic. And then in Y2K, to show my age, I had a huge changed, and I was introduced to the world of building information modeling in 2000. It was a typical lunch and learn. I walked in. They were up there from Revit and showing what their product could do. And I said to myself, because I was not CAD savvy at all, but I thought even I can do that as an older architect. And so that really did change my world. And I dove head into that. And with the help of some really tech savvy architects in the firm I was with, we pushed the limits of BIM for the next 3 years. And then I would venture to say we probably produced the first 100% set of BIM architectural construction documents. That was in 2003. So a huge advocate of that. Kind of became when Autodesk bought Revit, it kind of became their poster child there for a while, because not a lot of people were doing it, and certainly most people couldn't even spell BIM at the time. So I really, really enjoyed working with that tool as an architect. But then a few years later, I got dragged kicking and screaming to pursue a design build project, because I was an architectural designer and I was never going to do design build. What did I know? I didn't really know. So lo and behold, we won the job. And that was really the next big game changer for me in my profession, was understanding that really the best way as a designer to try and accomplish what the vision was for the owner was actually to work and design build collaboratively with the contractor. And so that was a great opportunity where I was able, with my team, to introduce BIM to a large contractor on a very large project through the design build delivery method. And so that started really turning the wheels in my head. And I decided to take another big risk, and I left the comfort of a big firm to go start an architectural group within a terrific planning technology firm. The challenge was they had no architectural portfolio and they had no architectural contracts. But what I was able to bring was some experience in design build, and obviously I was able to bring with me a couple of key staff that were part of that BIM team. And we just started knocking on doors of general contractors, introducing them to building information modeling, many of which still had never even heard of. And you can imagine talking about the benefits in using BIM with design build. They absolutely loved it. So it really, from that point forward, I never looked back. Still a big, firm believer in building information modeling and design build as the best means to deliver a project successfully, which leads me to here, which you talked about, and that's my dream job. I have a dream job here with RSNH because basically I get to help our associates, our project teams, and our clients, which are both owners and contractors, realize success in design build. And I have a lot of fun doing it. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and I've definitely found my calling.
That is so awesome. And I was thinking too, to all those that are listening out there who say, well, BIM, we know BIM, but there's so many new things that are evolving around BIM with the virtual design and construction, and then really integrating that fully and for the whole life cycle of a building. I mean, there's so many things that are happening around it that we're still just at the infancy. And when you add AI on top of that, I can only imagine what's going to evolve. We're in such an exciting time in construction. Technologically, we are challenging with people, but very technologically awesome right now. So we're going to jump in and talk about what we see, what you have seen between design and construction, because I think that's such an important part of what you're doing, is trying to get design and construction to work together better. And it's so still traditional in so many ways. And I see it even in design build, we fight it all the time, where we think the designers create the design and throw it over the fence to construction. And somehow that's supposed to work. So I see it even in the design build teams, the paradigm is there. So we're going to talk about that and get your insights and experience. So, but today in your world and in the world of construction, what do you see as the challenges with design?
Well, and you actually said the key word just a moment ago, and I got to say it's people, right? And on the design side, we share the same challenge that our friends on the construction side have. It's all about people right now. Staffing resources, really tough to manage in our operations. Finding quality people to put these designs together, super challenge. And then when you have them, it's all about trying to retain them, because all your competitors they all have the same challenge. And in fact, with design build, we're losing, the AE side is losing more and more quality people to the construction side as their pre-design teams are picking up their virtual design and their BIM internally. All the people that the traditional architectural engineering firms, relied upon coming out of school, they've got so many more options now. And so that's a real challenge. You talked about, we can't get through any conversation without talking about technology. And technology is great. The challenge is that it's evolving almost daily.
Yeah.
And you got to train your people. So now, you're trying to get, people staying productive on projects, but then you've got to get them trained and balancing all that time and finding the people who really, want to gravitate to these new, pieces of technology. And then, from the IPI conference that we went to, the whole thing about these generations and how people want to work these days, the workplace expectations, a lot more open environments, maybe, telecommuting is something that's happening more and more. But these open environments, 90% of the people when you're walking through are plugged in. So that kind of leads me to one of the big challenges I see on design, and that's communication skills. People just don't talk as much as they used to. When computers first came out in the industry, for me, we called it the sneaker net. You had to pick up a floppy and you had to use your sneakers to walk it over someplace and hand it off to somebody. So, gone is the sneaker network and it's emails and texting and Jabber. These are all good forms of communication, but not always the best.
Well, and I think the challenge I see a lot on projects is we assume we've communicated when we really haven't. So.
Right. Yeah. Or the worst thing is, and this is even on a personal level, you write something in an email and who knows, the tone is completely received by the tone of the person, the kind of day they're having.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah.
And there are just certain things that just, shouldn't be in an email. And emails are great ways to have record conversations. But I can't tell you how many times I work with very, very good project managers and they'll send me, these great emails as they're corresponding with our construction partners. And, I always ask the question, but did you have a conversation first? And 9 out of 10 times, the answer is no. And it's like, these emails could be probably a whole lot shorter. They may change if you give people the chance to have a conversation first. I think these are real problems because design is not just about having great ideas and exploring them and having them. It's about communication internally, within, your own architectural team or your own engineering discipline teams that you're working with. And then now externally, as we become more collaborative in producing our work with contractors and owners.
So what are you suggesting to your people? Is some kind of structure, or are you still looking at just getting them to don't put something in writing until you've talked to somebody? Or do you have any kind of rule of thumb that you're mentoring people with?
Yeah, I think that is seems basic and one of the simplest things to try and just encourage more verbal communication with our partners. And again, that's both internally within our organization and externally. Those are critical skills that seem to have dropped off. That we're really trying to make sure people are spending more time just picking up the phone. And even if you leave a voice message, kind of letting them know what's coming, I think goes a long way.
Yeah. Building the relationship isn't going to happen over a text messaging or an email. Yeah. So what do you see are opportunities for design and construction to work together better?
Well, based on my job, I'm going to say design build, right? So design build, I think, is definitely terrific. But more importantly, what we're seeing now, and I know you're aware of this, and there's still a lot of people in the industry who haven't heard the terminology of progressive design build. And I know you've had guests on talking about this. And I think we need to keep spreading this message, because the progressive design build method and that model, if our audience is not familiar with it, I strongly encourage you to spend a little bit of time investigating it. But I kind of consider it the collaboration of the Trinity, because we talk about design, construction, integration. There's another word in there, and that's the owner, right? We can't have success without the owner participating and helping us find that success. So I think that's why, we're really, really excited about progressive design build, because it does bring the owner, the designer, and the constructor together kind of from day one, working in a collaboration. And I think that even in some traditional methods of CMAR and standard design build, you've still got start and stop points, handoffs, versus the progressive design build model really helps people work collaboratively from day one. The second thing is partnering. That is the people side, right? We keep talking about the challenges of people, and partnering, I think, is just critical. It is one of the best practices identified by DBIA. It was something that was introduced a number of years ago, and certain owners required it. That's how I first experienced it. It was a requirement in the contract. I thought back then it brought a lot of value. It's evolved much more now into a more of a structured and collaborative ongoing process, which I think is something that a lot of people don't know about yet. And I think that that's just critical to integrating design and construction. It's all about the people, as you've said numerous times. And then I think, again, that word technology really can, building information modeling was one of those first technologies that started to bring the architects, engineers, and constructors together as we would virtually construct things. And that's great. But now, we're seeing 3D printing. And just in the last year, it's gone from people printing little dollhouse pieces for their kid, for their child, to they're 3D printing bridges and home. It's just incredible. Every time I turn around, there's another remarkable example of what 3D printing is doing. And of course, that's derivative from the building information modeling. And you mentioned, artificial intelligence. Man, that is really, really growing. And I just saw another article on an app that allows the design construction team to actually study safety concerns. And of course, in Europe, they've been using apps for code compliance reviews and things of that nature. So yeah, progressive design build, partnering, technology, these are all great things that are going to really help design and construction come together.
Sounds like another trinity there.
Yes. Yeah. But I do want to go back and just reemphasize owner. You can't say that enough. The best design build teams in the world aren't going to be successful if we don't have an engaged owner.
Exactly. And that the team is engaged from the beginning is magical, because they are taking the responsibility and ownership of creating and really co-creating with the owner, informed by the owner, what it is success looks like, and then hold each other accountable over the life of the project to make it happen within the time frame and the budget that you have. It really does make it so that it's a doable as opposed to a hope, which is so many projects they start out with. Well, we hope if the weather is just right and we don't get any wind and it doesn't rain ever, and the soil is exactly and the plans are perfect, we'll be successful.
Right.
Haven't seen it. Not happening. No. Yeah. So what do you see as barriers to design, construction, and the owner integrating?
Yeah, and I'm gonna fall back to that magic word, people, again, right? I mean, it's not technology that are barriers. It's not really contracts that are barriers. It's all about people, and there's leadership DNA out there still that just does not want to embrace this collaboration and leadership. I'm talking about, again, owners, designers, and constructors. That I've seen it, and that's a shame. So some of that leadership DNA is going to evolve. Hopefully, I've seen shifts. I've seen it getting stronger, and that's really helpful. But all that old DNA, that's old habits. And as we all know, change is not easy to do as it is to say. People say they're ready for it, but boy, it hurts sometimes. But I think
what do you think? What do you think? The DNA is there because it's what they're used to doing,
yeah,
and this is a change, and so it feels uncomfortable, or they're not bought into this could really work.
Well, as an example, there are factions within my professional organization of the AIA that are aggressively fighting for owners to be able to use design build. I'm an AIA card carrying member, but I don't get that. I don't understand that piece at all. On the contractor side, you'll hear stories sometimes of project managers that they just still look at the designer as any other subcontractor who's out there putting the building together, and it's not. We're completely different. Mm-hmm. And from the owner side, some of them just, boy, they do not want to change. They carry all the risk, right? I mean, we talk about contractors carrying risk, designers carrying risk, but in the end of the day, I think we all have to be mindful of the fact that that project manager or that director for the owner, boy, they're carrying a lot of risk, and it's asking a lot of them to go away from their tried and true method, whether they've had great success or little success or whatever. That's not an easy leap of faith for some people to make, and we need to be understanding of that and help guide them.
Yeah, I know with IPI, one of the things that they've talked about a lot is just trying to get owners to pilot, or even contractors or design build teams to pilot a project or two.
Right.
One might not be enough, but a series of smaller, less risky projects maybe, and just try, because it is walking into a different culture. And so the way you normally operate can't be the way you operate in this relationship. So it does take a little bit of time to adjust to. But I still think it makes so much sense. And the projects I know I've been working on, they're saving a lot of money, and the level of satisfaction very high. They're attracting the A team, not the C team.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons that people would want to step in and learn it. It's worth the effort to learn it.
Yeah, and I think one last piece about kind of a barrier is the pressure of time. As I observe what's going on in the industry, I just would encourage people to slow down and move with some purpose, a little greater purpose perhaps, in establishing those working relationships. Boy, when design build was coming out like all gangbusters for a while, people were just like, they were just going down the path together. They'd never even had a beer together. And, I think just slow down, get to know who you want to work with, and really invest more in building those relationships, because these are definitely barriers to a successful design, integrating with the construction team. It's just the lack of knowing one another.
Yeah, that sounds like great advice. Really, for all of us all the time, is that you've got to slow down enough and and make sure that you're building the relationships and maintaining the ones that are so important to us. And besides, it's what makes the whole thing fun too.
Yes.
It's the people. Yeah. So we want to have fun.
Life is too short.
Yeah, exactly. So if someone wanted to really help their project to have better integration and maybe step into design build or progressive design build, which is unique, and maybe we can put a link to the progressive design build DBIA booklet thing they created. I don't remember what it's called. It has a name. I know.
Yeah.
That would be great, because that way people can understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a progressive GMP over the life of the project. But what would you suggest if someone really wanted to kind of take this on and maybe do a pilot or 10 pilots to see if they could move it along and see how they could make it work?
So, we've got NFL's coming back. So I just kind of use the analogy of, you've got off season, preseason, and then you got the season, game time. Those athletes might take a week or two off or so, but, they're working hard pretty much year round. And that off season, I'm a big believer in, before you're trying to integrate teams, doing that off season work. And that's, again, going back to building that foundation of relationships. It's just critical to spend that time. I've had wonderful meetings, what I call kind of expectation meetings with contractors as we explore the possibility of working together. And, a small percentage are ones where we disagree that, it's not a good fit. So you have to invest in building that foundation in a relationship, because there's always going to be challenges. And if you can fall back on that trusted relationship that you spent time building before you got on the field, that's critical. And then, kind of the preseason is really kind of our rehearsal time, running through some standard protocols. Trying to get a job done under pressure is not the time to figure out the way each other wants to see their building information models put together and collaborate. These, that's the wrong time to be doing this. So practice together. Find things that you can do that maybe don't have some of those other pressures upon them, and run through and figure those things out, so that when you get on the field, everybody's going on the same count. And then, finally, when you are in the field, I will say it again, I think partnering is one of those things that people aren't doing enough of. And if you don't have, it was just kind of the way I worked. So even though I can't say I ever formally partnered, it was just the way that I went about trying to engage my team, my delivery team. And what I'm seeing is that not everybody does it the way Rob does it. So, and that's okay. Some people do it better than me, but a lot of people aren't really invested in that partnering piece. And I think having something like, the International Partnering Institute, that organization gives you all the tools that you need to understand to implement that. Because really partnering it's all about the communication. So partnering is really all about, effectively raising the bar in our communication efforts, because it's just so much better to improve integration before the game, not during the game. But sometimes that happens. And if that happens, don't be afraid to call timeout. Pull a team off, spend the time to find out the whys. Why is this happening? Why aren't we doing well here? And then commit as a delivery team to develop the hows. How are we going to move forward from here? And then have the follow-up, to confirm the follow-throughs. And it'd be great if every job started with, some formal partnering process. And it can happen in many different ways. And you can bring in a professional facilitator or have a champion within. But it's never too late. We have friends in the industry too, right? They've developed a specialty in coming in, at halftime or at the quarter or at a big time out to come in and help a team get back on path.
One of the things it sounds like too is this is what been our experience is that you've got this trifecta of the owner, contractor, and the designer. And if you look at the power of each individual organization, the owner has most of the power. The power to decide, the power to create, the power to pay, the power to say no, the power to say yes. And so in order to have a collaborative environment, you must be equal.
Yes.
And so what the facilitator really does and what the partnering process does is it creates that equalization so that everyone has an equal say and everyone can listen to each other. And then on top of that, what really messes up projects is complexity. So if you've got these three entities coming together and then you add how many entities are embedded in each one of those, like how many subcontractors do we have? How many subconsultants do we have? How many stakeholders do we have? We have so much complexity. The complexity really undermines your ability to deliver. And so what partnering does is it begins to create one team focused on the success. And so complexity melts away. So you have the ability to communicate and you've also melted away complexity. So that's why these teams soar. And so it's so fun to watch because it's like they're able to do it. We've got these structures that just undermine people's ability to communicate, coordinate, and do all the things that they might do to innovate and be wonderful. It's so hard to achieve that without a process to overcome the norm processes that we have.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the most exciting things that I've experienced through having that kind of partnering relationship is, when one of the other two, the owner or the contractor, actually go out of their way to kind of cheer for you and make something happen for you that you weren't even aware of. That is just phenomenal. Everybody really is out looking to help everybody be successful. And I think that's critical.
And that's that one team phenomenon. I'm working on a project right now that's about a $2.5 billion project. And we have 2 design build teams on the project, but our philosophy has been one project, one team. And so we just opened up some of the gates for the project, and we're working now in 7 months. We've got to open up a lot more. And it was interesting because the team was talking about the one team, one project. We're going to be one team, one project, even when we apply for awards, even when we are doing media, like we're opening, our media is going to be one team, one project. It just changes everything to become this one focused team as opposed to these multiple entities that come together for a project. It's so exciting.
It is. It's great to see, and it's a great example for everybody to be aware of and know that it can happen.
Yes, exactly. It can, and everyone on the team is going like, "This is so cool." You're having fun. Talk about trying to attract people and keep them. You better be interesting, fascinating, and easy to work for, and make it fun.
That's right.
People aren't going to stay. So you've been leading a lot of teams in a lot of different capacities. Now you have your big team across the country. What would you say is your greatest strength as a leader?
I think if you were to ask people, they know I care. I care. I care about the people. I care about the organization. I care about the projects. And I think that means a lot. To quote John Maxwell, this is one of my favorite quotes. And you're on my list of favorite quotes too, as you know. But he said, people don't care about what you know until they know you care. And when I read that years ago, I was like, wow, that's critical. Because I think you're not ever going to have 100% of your team, buy into your vision. There'll be parts of it. To get 100% satisfaction across a large group of people is pretty rare. But I think that human nature lends people to say, I don't agree maybe with this particular part of the plan here or the vision, but the guy, the person in charge, the leader, I can sense their passion. I can sense that they really care about, me and my input, that I've had and I've had the chance to give that input. I would definitely tend to think it's just the fact that, fortunately for me, I really care.
Yeah. And I always tell everybody, you can't fake caring.
No.
People know. People can pick it up pretty fast. Yeah.
They know if it's genuine. Yeah.
Okay, so you've worked on a lot of projects, a lot of different things. Not everything's probably always gone exactly as you would like. You probably crashed and burned a few times. Tell us about one of those times where you faced a really big challenge and it didn't go as you hoped.
Yeah, so this one, this is always a fun one to think about. But I would say, the worst was I was fired by a client. And, for Rob Smedley, that's pretty devastating. I'm a pleaser. My whole goal is to have happy clients, and to have this client. I knew going in, I was told this client is really difficult, but it was a real wake up call for me to think that someone actually didn't appreciate anything I was doing to the point where they wanted me off the job. And but that's the first time anything like that had happened to me professionally. And I was still, maybe 12, 15 years into my profession. But, in retrospect, I realized what my fatal flaw was. And that's really, when I think about it, I didn't spend the time getting to know the client as a person. I didn't know what their drivers were, what their motivators were, what kept them up at night. I didn't know these things. And that's probably why you hear a lot of what I'm talking about in getting to know people.
Yeah.
Because I've never
learned the hard way.
I've never made that mistake again. I will spend as much time as I need to, just getting to know somebody before venturing into, business conversations. I have to, because I don't want to make that mistake again.
So tell me, what is the best advice you have ever gotten?
This is a fun one because there's all kinds of great ones, but I'll never forget. I was with a firm. We were looking to start a branch office, and I asked this person, what their thoughts were, and he said, "Move the headquarters and leave the branch office." And not quite literally, right? But that, to me, for some reason, that just has stuck in my head for 30 years. And so what I think it says is think boldly, act boldly, but not blindly, right? And so if you're going to do something, and I think I've pretty much led my professional life this way, is I'll go bold. Think big. If you're gonna do something, man, just do it. But be realistic. Don't be blind about it.
Cool. Very cool. So we ask everyone to give us a gift, a resource of something that you have found meaningful that you think would be helpful for Construction Nation. What have you got for us today?
Well, I was turned on. I don't know. I was asked to do an article for an e-newsletter called Construction Dive. And so now I get, 3 or 4 emails a day. But you know what? I take the time to read them. It's an amazing collection of stories from this group called Construction Dive. You talk about, needing to stay on top of what's going on. These guys are just, this group is just all over it. I can't say enough good things about the content of information that Construction Dive is putting out there. So I would definitely recommend people check out.
We will put a link in the show notes for people to find Construction Dive.
Yeah. And then I know real quick, I was given the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie 30 years ago. And there's so many great authors out there and so many great books. But Boy, if you want to start from the ground zero, start with that book. It should be required reading, in my opinion, for every college graduate. But it's still, there are chapters in that book that resonate with me today. And then, of course, podcast. Your podcast is great, but also Carly Fiorina's By Example is phenomenal. And then, of course, John Maxwell's Leadership. And he has a fun one that's, I think he posts on Fridays. It's like Leadership in a Minute, where someone sends in a word. And he takes 60 seconds to share his thoughts on the word. Just great stuff out there.
Wonderful. We'll capture these and put them in the show notes.
Okay.
So what is how can we get in touch with you? What's the best way for people to contact you?
Best way is going to be email. So it's rob.smedley@rsnh.com. And if you need a response by a certain time period, you'd let me know, and I'll let you know if I can make that date and time. And if I can't, I'll let you know the quickest I can. But my email box is managed pretty thoroughly. So if it goes in there, it's not going to get deleted or forgotten about for eternity. I will get back to you. But like I said, if it's kind of an urgent need, just always let me know, and I'll do my best to get back to you by then.
Perfect. So what parting advice do you have for all of us so that we could start taking action today or tomorrow to really maybe better integrate our overall trifecta: owner, contractor, designer?
Sure. If you're in this industry, and I'm always surprised by the number of people who have never heard of DBIA still to this day, it astounds me. But if you're in this industry, I highly recommend two organizations: Design Build Institute of America and IPI, International Partnering Institute. Those are my go-tos. But you can't just become a member. I mean, you really get involved. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And both those organizations are phenomenal. I couldn't imagine progressing in my profession without being involved in both of those. And then secondly, I'd say, be sure to invest in yourself and be consistent in that. Don't wait for corporate to select you for some corporate, leadership training. Those are all good, but, there's so many great, books and podcasts and conferences out there. You don't have to do super deep dives, but you got to invest in yourself, I think, to really understand where your opportunities are for leadership and for personal and professional growth, and just be consistent. As often as you can. You miss a day or a podcast too, no big deal. Just get back on the horse and help yourself, help your company, and help your team.
That is such great advice. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Rob, for being a guest on Construction Dream Team. I sure appreciate it.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. You're a lot of fun. These are great.
I know that this is going to help a lot of people because this is something we struggle with all the time, almost on every project. So thank you so much. Okay, Construction Nation, remember, dream teams don't just happen. They're built one step at a time. And today we learned another step, or many steps perhaps, we can take to improve the way that we work together and look at ways that we can make construction and design work together more effectively. And of course, that takes bringing the owner into it as well. And Construction Dream Team, we are here to help you tap into the collective wisdom of the entire industry so you can accelerate your success. So why not send out this episode to everyone? You can easily do that. Send it out to your team. Have a conversation about it. What are we doing? What can we do better? Share it with each other. Bring on that conversation and then do one thing. Just do one thing differently. And that will set you up for making that movement towards success. Remember, the faster you can build your dream team, the faster you can achieve success. So I also want to just ask everyone, remember that we do have a resource page at constructiondreamteam.com/resources. Every expert who comes on shares their best ideas for you. They're all there for you. And if you're thinking about Christmas presents for your clients or your people, your team, go there, look at it. There's a lot of things there. What if you curated a group of the things that have been shared with Construction Dream Team over the course of this year, and that was your gift to people? I think that could be pretty darn awesome. Anyway, we appreciate you listening. It's because of you we exist, and I will catch you next time.